what service accommodation business is in 2024, and more importantly, what actually means to the industry and what you're about to get into. Welcome to this free crash course. And what is service accommodation business? Now, service accommodation business is giving a short-term let property to a potential customer. In our case, we'll call them a guest, and they would normally stay with you for, anywhere from one night, if that's what you offer, all the way to a couple of months, depending on the strategy that you're taking on. Now, in specific cases in the UK right now, as they call it, rent-to-rent service accommodation, which is what I'm going to cover, you can literally take a property that you can rent out from a landlord, and you can re-let it out with the right agreement, which I'm going to talk about as well, in a way that you're going to maximize profit through this property. In our industry, there's different other ways to do it as well. I've seen people doing a boat, I've seen people having their own property and renting it as a buy-to-let before, and now they've decided to do it as a service accommodation, which actually allows them to make more cash flow. I've known people who have got, where I live here, in the best location, and what they do is for 2 weeks they Airbnb their property and they go away as a holiday, and what they make on their property effectively pays off for their service accommodation or their actual property, which they've turned into Airbnb, and in between everything I have seen in the industry, right? But today I want to talk about the industry itself and how it works. So a lot of people class service accommodation as a property investing strategy. Now, for me, I would say there's three factors that drive service accommodation business. Firstly, it's a property investing strategy. So you've got to find the best strategy that works for you, right? So entry level, rent-to-rent service accommodation. Even entry more level, you can go into Airbnb co-hosting, which effectively you're helping Airbnb owners, and you can go into management. You can then also do purchase to service accommodation, or I know people who are building flats and apartment and then turning into apart hotels. So there's numbers of ways you can get into this strategy, but this, I guess, is what we call property investing. The second thing is hospitality business, and a lot of people forget that you still got to offer a service, because a lot of time you might be a property entrepreneur and you might be really good at running numbers, understanding stuff, but reality is you've got to understand this is a hospitality business, which means you've got to give a service to a client. You've got to make sure a customer, a guest, is completely happy, and for that it takes a lot of effort, processes, system, and also a great property that a guest would like to come and stay. And lastly, for me, and which I've been talking about for the last at least 4 years, I call it a marketer's business, because someone who knows how to market this property, his or her property, actually makes the best ROI. Now, the reason why I say this is we've worked as GrowYourBnb with numbers of clients all over the year, and the best results our clients have got is as soon as they implement a great marketing strategy in their business, they then end up getting better results, fully occupied property, and also long-term properties. Look, I've done loads of videos of client interview on my channel, and it's worth looking into it, because that you will see how a lot of people get into service accommodation over the last few years, and they don't really have the knowledge about marketing a property, because they're used to going into courses, and they've been told, hey, go and get yourself a property unit. So look, I guess in today's video I want to go through firstly the two basic of how to get started, and then in next video I really want to dive into doing the market due diligence, which probably is my favorite part, and then we keep building to make sure that you understand how to start a service accommodation business in 2024. So the first step is how to get started, the legals of registering a rent-to-rent service accommodation business. So number one, and by the way guys, I'm going to leave a checklist down below as well, so feel free to go download that as a part of your checklist exercise. The first thing is company house, right? You've got to register yourself as a company. Now follow up with that, you've got the property ombudsman or PRS that you need to sign up to protect your business. You have property liability insurance, right? Public liability insurance. insurance, which is quite important for protecting your business. You then have a bank account, business bank account. Nowadays, you've got several different banks that will allow you to do so. You can also be a part of National Landlord Association, which is again quite an important part. So I guess those 5 things will legally set you up as a potential letting agency classed as providing a service accommodation. Obviously, please do speak to an accountant while you're setting up the company, because the further costs that will come in coming days, it's definitely worth knowing, right? And we can obviously go dive deep into it, but that will give you an overall understanding of what a legal part of service accommodation is. If you're watching this video and you're really serious about it, you can go and actually get this all registered. It will cost you a couple of £100 to get this all up and running. But again, if you're serious about this business, you've got to look at this investment. The second thing we want to go into on how to get started is creating a business, right? And a lot of people go, oh yeah, don't worry about your logo. I don't worry about, people say don't worry about logo because they're thinking about you need to go and get a property. But for me, if we create a brand, not only it will allow you to have better conversation with landlords at later date, your letting agents at later date, but also you're thinking about your guests in mind, because it's not just today's session, right, around how to get started. It's also, a couple of months down the line when you've secured a unit, how do you go about making sure that your brand is being seen to direct bookings? So for me is creating a brand name, creating a brand logo, and definitely going, again, it might be an expenses for now, but definitely creating a great brand presence through a website would be an ideal start. And by the way, you can go and build it yourself. You've got Wix and you've got different platform to build it, or you hire somebody who could actually do this for you as a part of business investment. So guys, I guess that's the start journey of creating your business. This is the most exciting section for today, which is how to qualify a location and how to qualify a property, because they're 2 different things, and a lot of mentorship don't actually cover this. And for me, when I speak to my GrowYourBnb client who's got 1 unit, has gone through mentorship, I'm like, hey, did you actually go and qualify a unit? And they're like, yeah, I think we did like Airbnb change. Did you go and qualify your location before? Oh no, we just, it was our first unit. I wanted to take action on. I'm like, it's all great, but that extra hour of what you can do today, which is what I'm going to show you, can definitely change the way you invest in your property. So let's go into how to qualify a location. It's pretty simple. I think the market tells you, look, there's Airbnb and there's booking.com, right? And you can use those 2 platforms, but what you do with the platform or how you do your searches can make a huge difference understanding a location or actually qualifying a location. So let me give you an example here, right? So if you open an Airbnb right now and you go into Airbnb and do a search, what you're going to see is numbers of properties currently live. And I'm going to give you one little hack now, and I'm going to share you my screen and we'll go through it together. And if you do this, firstly, you will get to understand the volume of properties available in your location or in the potential location that you're looking to invest. So let's go into the account now and let's go through it. So as you can see from my screen, right, if I go to, let's say, Liverpool, and now we're talking about qualifying a location, you can randomly obviously choose a date in next few weeks and or even next week and just do a search for. At the moment, our crucial part is just understanding the level of properties that will come just live. Now, a lot of people, what they forget to do is, if you're looking to obviously just invest in Liverpool, you want to also understand certainly the different location. Now, to be more specific, if you're looking to invest in that zone, I will definitely go in and kind of set a map. Remember to please take a screenshot of the map so you know exactly where you've done. Now you can see there's 265 properties available in that kind of frame of map that we have. Now what I'm going to do is to qualify a location, I want to know in the best way possible how many property is currently live on Airbnb, give or take, to make sure I understand the volume or the supply right now in the location. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose 2 different different ways to do it. If we're at 3rd of April today, I'm going to go 3rd of May, which is a month, 3rd of June, which is 2nd month, 3rd of July, which is 3rd month. Now I'm going to choose 1st till the 3rd, which falls under the 90 days process, right? So if somebody is only opening their calendar for 90 days, that's good. Now you can see the exact same map showed me there is 744 properties available. Now that says you right now that a lot of people would have thought, oh, by the way, I've done a research and there's only, like 200 whatever property there was. But by us just being more strategic, by going further out in the calendar, 90 days, because some operators only open 90 days in their calendar, and then during that last 2 days have shown you what is currently available right now, and which makes a huge difference on your understanding of location. Now that tells you right now that Liverpool has got 700 and around 44 properties, give or take it, because it's in the 90 days. I always say clients add another 10% on your actual numbers, so I'd put another 74 properties. So give or take, there's about 850 properties live in Liverpool. So now my next question to you is, if your property is going to be in that location, is it going to be as good? Firstly, is it going to be making sure that, are you going to attract a new kind of clientele, or are you working with a new type of property? So the next question now is how to qualify a property as a service accommodation. So I wanted to show you a little hack earlier about how to qualify, a location, but there's a lot more into searching into Google, searching into booking.com. It's the exact way I've shown you on Airbnb you can replicate on the other platforms as well. So how to qualify a property is by just understanding numbers of things. And I've realized with the Airbnb filter, there's numbers of things you can run through, which I'm going to show you quickly now, which is probably the most important thing depending on the size of property that you want to invest. So let's go back into the screen and let's go through it again. So we're back into that same screen. I've zoomed in a little bit, and what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go into filter, as you can see, and now you have an option to do numbers of things here. So you can go 1 bedroom, 1 apart, 1 bed and 1 bathroom, and then you can do showroom. At the moment it just shows 1, so that's basically on a room by room basis. If I now go entire room and do 506, amazing. Now 2 things here. I want to always understand why Airbnb has promoted this specific listing to page number 1 on the searches, because the person who obviously ranks on page number 1 are the person who's likely to get bookings, right? And numbers of things you can see from here is the reviews. The people who's got quite a lot of reviews are the people who are genuinely pushed further out. Now, for example, that one there, which is a 3-bed, it says 6 beds in total with 3 beds apartment. Let's have a look. So you can see, like, I guess that host is probably an experienced host. So you can see they've got a lot, absolutely lot of reviews. Again, Airbnb likes that, and you can see how their response rate is quite high, and they also are quite quick with their respond. And obviously, knowing that they've already got an account up and running, they know that Airbnb is pushing them forward. If you look at the type of calendar, and going back to qualifying a location as well as now a property, if you look at this, what I'm looking here is, if I'm about to invest next to this property here, right, which is around that, and I'm qualifying a property, I can clearly see here right now by going into their calendar and seeing the numbers of bookings, right, quite spread out, but there is quite a lot of bookings on the account for summer. It clearly shows to me that this property, which is, it does say it's 3 bedrooms. Yeah, bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3. You can see the bed settings they've got. Now, see, this is again qualifying a property, and this is actually a great example that we found it. You can see here what they've done. Because they're a city center location, they're trying to maximize their sleep. Now, it doesn't look the best, but what they've done is, by allowing themselves to add 2 double beds in a room, where effectively a room could only have one double bed or 1 king bed, which is what generally people would have done. they've actually put 2 double beds, which now all of a sudden what's happened, if you look at their bed setting, they've got 1 bedroom which has got 2 double beds, so that sleeps 4. They've got another double bed that's got just 1 bedroom which got 1 double bed, and then they've got bedroom number 3 which has got 2. So effectively they've now got, rather than having just 3 beds, they've actually got 5 beds going, including the living room which has got 6. And eventually if you look at the amount of sleep, they've got 4 in there, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, including probably the living room sofa bed, it's probably 12. So again, they're really maximizing the opportunity in Liverpool city centre, allowing themselves to attract those probably weekenders where they can charge a lot of money. At the moment, I've used Airbnb as an example, but the way I'm doing Airbnb, you can see it's a lot more detailed. I'm a lot more thorough on the way I'm looking at the listing. I'm a lot more thorough on the way I'm qualifying a property, because what this is saying to me is when you now go, and we'll talk about it at a later date about, qualifying more pricing and, the direct booking strategies, but also set up, you can literally walk into a property and look at the bedroom and go, this is too small for me, or, this one fits 2 double beds. So you will start leveraging the opportunity behind your due diligence, because the whole point about due diligence is you will then have a product lined up. Because I can definitely tell you today, if you actually replicate what that's just happened in Liverpool in a 3-bed apartment with sleep, the likely chances are you're going to make money, because looking at their calendar this summer, it looks very, very busy. So that is the staging of how to qualify a property and how to qualify a location. But hopefully it gives you an understanding of why we're doing this and how this is going to help you in future to make the right decision when you take a property on. Now, the third thing I want to do in this training video before we move on to other things in the next session, I really want to talk about pricing, because when I speak to a lot of new operators, and hopefully this will change the way you think, I get a lot of people coming in going, Piers, I need to charge £120 a night, £130 a night, and I'm like, what indicates it? And we're going to show in a minute, but we're going to do the exact same exercise and we'll go into accounts and see the nightly rate, kind of compare it and stuff. But what I really want you to do is, when you're thinking about the nightly rates, I want you to take advantage of thinking about a guest behavior. So without further ado, let's go into the account now and let's run through some exercise that will allow you to do further more checks and how you are going to increase the opportunity of understanding the nightly rate. But I have a surprise for you, because I want to talk about monthly rates too, because my channel is all about getting longer term bookings, and the longer term bookings, you need to understand what sort of nightly rate or monthly rates can you achieve to make this business and property a success. So as you can see, I'm on the account. Earlier we were looking at this property because we were very intrigued in their bed settings. Now I'm going to go into their pricing, and because they're mostly booked over the weekend, I'm going to go 8 to 10, which is the next gap they have. They're only charging £95 for 4 person, but because I know it can sleep a lot of people, I'm going to increase that. Now that is a very cheap pricing. 8 guests can only sleep. Now that, for me, this person right now is definitely losing the opportunity of making or maximizing profit, but also it's creating a concern for me, because if you're going to go in with a 3-bed apartment, renting it for, let's say, £1,600 a month, if you're charging £95 a night for 8 guests, you really aren't going to make the money that you deserve unless you own that property and you have a very low mortgage. So I'm going to try a different date again, 26th to 27th. There you go. Right now it makes total sense. What they are doing right now here is they're looking to fill in the gap. So it's a last minute booking. They just want to make some quick money rather than being empty, so filling off the orphan days. But actually I went in Friday and Saturday in 26th to 27th of April. In 2 weeks time, you can see the nightly rate has now gone to £302. So that's kind of their flat rate they've got. I'm going to look at numbers of different options again. 2 nights here, 135. So they're really playing around with their pricing right? That's probably what's happening here. They understand the last minute bookings, they need to fill in the gap. They then understand that there's certain Friday and Saturday, which is a weekend, where they can maximize opportunity on sleep and, you know, charge something really crazy. But also, one of the things I've noticed in this process is they don't have a cleaning fee added. So what they've done in their pricing is the cleaning fee is actually in the cost of the nightly rate, where in this case, you know, £302 times 2, that's good enough. Unless you, again, because it sounds like they're a big management company, unless you've got a cleaning team in-house, you couldn't do that, because you would end up paying an extra cost on the pricing, which we're going to talk about, right? But really interesting to see. Now, this is the thing, like, you can see how I'm looking at calendar in a different way. I'm going to someone's listing, like for example, that's a 1-bed apartment. Let's go in. Lovely, amazing. So that is a 1-bed apartment. It's got 2 king beds, right? You can see here. And then we can do exactly the same thing. We can just go in and understand the nightly rate again. So in this case, I'm going to go further in to this month, where there's a gap. They've done really well over the weekend. I'm going to do 2 nights over the weekdays, £114, which again, you can see here, they charge cleaning fee, which is fair, £258. If I go into May, it's probably like they're going to have a more nightly rate. Oh no, so they've got similar nightly rate. Going to further out into calendar. Yeah, so again, this person here is probably an independent owner, has got 11 month posting, 40 reviews. There is a great opportunity for her to be able to increase her nightly rate starting May, because at the moment her key focus is filling this calendar in while maximizing £5-10 extra per nightly stay, which will, you know, obviously add up to her end profit. So I hope this kind of gives you an understanding of the guest behavior, like who's staying over the weekend, who's staying over the weekdays, and what can they maximize it through. So guys, I hope you are finding this training interesting, because for me, I think the way I've run through this thing, sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I do this every day with our clients. I show them how to do it. But you know, when I do this again, and I hope like someone who's watching this for the first time is going, because that actually makes a lot more sense. I've registered my company, I've created my brand, I'm now qualifying a property, I'm qualifying a location. Now I'm trying to take more time into understanding the pricing based on the size of property, the bed settings they have, the calendar they have, right? This month versus next month, the cleaning fee that potentially someone's charging and someone's not charging. Why would they not charge? Are they a bigger operator who's got a cleaning in-house, which they can afford to do it for free because they've obviously put it in their pricing, but they don't have to charge an extra? However, someone who's independent has to pay the outsourcing of cleaning, are charging £30. And lastly, I want to talk about monthly rates, because in UK, we're heavily invested on getting those monthly bookings, because they're the easiest one to manage. It becomes a lot hands-free. It makes sure that, you know, if you're in a locations like Liverpool in a city centre, not only you have an option to go those 2-3 night stays with the bed settings like this, you also have an option to get monthly relocation client, insurance client, you know, people within the UK relocating for work for X amount of time, contractors. You can really take advantage of people who wants to stay with you 30 nights plus. But for them, understanding the monthly rates, because a lot of time when someone does a due diligence, they're generally just doing the nightly rates and they want to know how much we can make on a nightly rate on weekends and weekdays. But I actually want to talk about monthly rates, and the reason why I do that is we've had numbers of clients who's come in and gone, I charge this should what I should be charging, because I did a research when I first started, and I'm like, well, let's scrap all of that. Your calendar's empty. You have a great option to look at monthly rates. So one of the main reasons why I do this is a lot of time when you do due diligence, you've got to spend time doing your monthly research, because also if you can get this monthly rates right, then when you go and find a property based on certain rent and all the utilities and the fixed expenses, you can then go, okay, well, based on my research, all the monthly in Liverpool was X amount, right? Let's say the cheapest one was about 3,000, the expensive one was about 3.5, 4, whatever that was in the price bracket. But you can see here, if you go for the lowest number, after all your expenses, you would still make £1,000 net profit. They're willing to pay a certain figure when it comes to monthly. And if you can match that figure, then your property is going to automatically get booked. So let's go in first and let's look at the monthly rates, and then we'll dive into how you can start thinking about actual guest behavior while you're doing your market due diligence, especially for your pricing strategies for your potential service accommodation business. Well, as you can see from my screen, I'm in Airbnb right now, and I guess your monthly searches can be run through different opportunities, right? But I'm going to do it two different ways because you can see the actual options behind it. But it's going to be exciting because let's say, okay, so I'm going to go Liverpool city centre. I'm going to use 1st of May, 31st of May, 4 guests, and I'm going to do search, right? And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to try and keep the map aligned. So I'm just going to use that. And effectively what you're going to see now is exciting because there's numbers of properties available here. You can see here, like, 2,413, 5,000, 4,000. And honestly, it's going to be so different. 4,295, 3,872, and 3,776, 1,635 for a 2-bed. And all the pricing are going to be so different. What you're going to realize now, and this is something that I want you to understand, is by you doing a monthly search, it will really give you a big opportunity and understanding the actual location. Like, for example, 156 properties only available. So now let's talk about the actual available stock and why it is this way rather than, the 700 properties we saw earlier on Airbnb. So now the reason why there's only 156 property available, doesn't mean that all the properties are being booked. It's because people have certain bookings in the middle of the month. So there's probably like at least 200-300 properties which has got only 1 or 2 bookings in May for a couple of nights. But what does that mean to them is they've actually blocked their own calendar, which means now they've kicked themselves out from being searched on the long-term booking. So now hopefully this gives you an understanding of my thought process on actually, by you not getting booking at all and you've been found on monthly searches, you have a bigger opportunity to land yourself actually a longer term booking, which for me personally, we've done it for so many clients who comes in and go, Piers, I'm actually completely dead. And I'm like, great, let's understand what the monthly rate is. Let's try and work back ways to understand what's the rent, what's all the utilities, what's the potential Airbnb commission you're going to pay, package it up and actually deliver that as a price that's going to make you X amount of profit. Now, guys, again, if we can take it into direct bookings, it's a completely different strategy and you have a better option because people find you directly. They don't have to pay any commission if you're in that structure, and you're going to get a direct booking lead, which effectively makes you in a better position than most of the people who are just fighting on Airbnb. So that itself, I really wanted to make sure that this crash course was not about what it's already out there. I'm trying to show you things like understanding monthly rates, things like understanding all type of guest behavior, right? So I'm talking about, hey, Monday to Friday, contractor or leisure weekend, family out, weekend with groups of people in Liverpool. All of these things will make you understand how you're going to secure your unit, and especially how you look into your unit while you set up, you furnish and actually go live. So my next exercise for you is to take a note on the exact process we've taken, but also I want you to go back and do it yourself and think about the guest behavior. Who's your ideal potential guest, short term or long term, and how can you be those guests while you're doing your market research? So as we now move into the next part, you've now qualified a property, a location, your nightly rates and your monthly rates. Effectively now is a good time, or you should be able to be confident enough to go and secure a property, especially a rent-to-rent property. Now you can do it through 2 different ways. 1, through a landlord, and 2, through a letting agents. Now look, I'm going to keep this very simple because I've done a lot of video around this before, but through a landlord, it's effectively platforms like Open Rent, Spare Room, potentially sometimes, Gumtree, and they're probably the 3 platforms I would probably maximize. And there is Facebook Marketplace. Yes, you can go networking, but Open Rent is probably the easiest platform right now that everyone goes to. Now, sadly, it is saturated because people are doing rent to rent. People are sending landlords messages on a daily basis, and landlords are now getting used to those messages. So going back to what I said earlier, do you have a brand ready? Because if you don't, you're going to be another Joe who's going to send them a message and say, hey, are you looking to let your property out for 1 to 3 years, blah, 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 3 to 5 years, the same usual template. It's not going to work, right? You've got to spend time to leverage this opportunity. Secondly, when you're doing through OpenRent, if you keep doing copy and pasting the same message, they will shadow ban you, which means you're not allowed to send that messages again, obviously effectively losing the account. You will not be able to work through landlords. So for me, I always had, and I've owned an estate agency and a letting agency before, and I prefer to work with different businesses by understanding through a letting agent, because if you work with a letting agent, you're not going to get banned. You're just going to get a little bit more no's, but also a yes where needed. And if that yes turns into the deal, you're always going to have someone that you can work with. So let's talk about through a letting agent now, which is probably my preference. A lot of people say, hey, look, go through a landlord because less hassle and stuff. But trust me, guys, it's saturated right now. A landlord will open rent inbox and there's at least 5 to 10 people asking them about rent-to-rent services. Through a letting agent, it's still the same. And letting agents now are obviously introduced to a service accommodation business a lot because it's been going over the last 6 years. And some agents will say no to you straight away because they don't want to do any business. Now, I will always say to you, you've got to find your own script or your own processes. But the framework of having that conversation is exactly the same. Right? Now, in this crash course, obviously my goal is for you to understand the process, but I've already done a video on how to speak to a letting agent. I've actually made a phone call on that call. So I would love you to be able to go and watch that video after this, because it will really educate you around what a letting agent and how a letting agent deals with you, especially if you're a new operator, some of the questions they will ask you. And more importantly, they might be challenging enough to say, hey, no, we don't actually do it. So I hope you understand how you can secure a rent-to-rent property or the strategies. Obviously, there's a lot more detail, and I will say to you, you've got to make at least 50 phone calls before you understand the process, the framework that's going to work for you. I wanted to talk about a property checklist because I guess when you've spoken to a landlord and a letting agent and, hopefully be able to secure something, I wanted to talk about a property kind of checklist, because as you're walking into property, a lot of time, because it's your first time doing it, you might not have the idea behind certain things that you want to look into. The reality is you've got a property, you might be able to go and put an offer, you do everything, but then you realize that later date, oh my God, I completely forgot to ask them about, X thing. And at that time, the agent might turn around or the landlord might turn around and say, hey, actually, it might not be possible to do so. So it's worth understanding how to view a property, because that's going to be a big win, and the exact process. So let's talk about it now in a thorough manner. So if I've secured a viewing, firstly, I'm going to text or message that agent on the day, and just purely because sometimes what happens is somebody takes a call and the other agent actually comes and views it, and they normally don't communicate between if it's a company let or is it a tenant. So you then generally walk in there going, okay, they know that you're a company let, but you're also in back of the mind going, oh my God, like they might not do it. And it's happened to many people I've spoken to. So for me, as you walk in, literally putting the guest hat on, right? So as soon as I arrive there, how quickly can I find the property? How quickly can I find the parking? Because that's quite important. And if your guest can't find a parking, then there's going to be a problem, because that basically means that you're going to get a phone call saying, hey, we've arrived to the location, cannot find a parking. So you need to understand what's the easiest way to get to the parking for your potential guest. As you're walking through the parking, you've also got to look at numbers of things. Firstly, if it's a block of apartment, just look around just to make sure that things are looking well. A lot of guests will compare that as they arrive. As you're walking in, if you're working on a block, you might already see basically a key box outside, which is a great news, because you're obviously, for you're probably thinking, actually, now we know that there's already running a service accommodation business. That also means potentially lease will allow you to do, company let service accommodation, which is a great news, but also, just a good understanding of how would that customer go in through that first gate, which could be potentially a fob, or is it a number that they need to put in to go into the apartment block? If it's a house, you can literally know that you can put a key box outside or in the safest place possible, because you've got to think about these things, right? Because in a house, you've got certain places you can leave a key box, and you can put a second key box in a certain place as a backup keys. Whereas with the apartment, you're thinking, well, how does my guest go through the first door? If they can't go through the first door without a key, does that mean can you put a key box outside the property, or is the key box not allowed at hassle, which means you've got to use a third-party company where the guest can go and pick up the keys. Obviously, for safety reason, it's worth checking all of this. Now, as you're going in and then you've gone into the apartment, outside the apartment door, is there a way to put the key box, or would you put a digital key handle just to make your life easier? But it's something that obviously you can see as you're going into the property, you're taking time to think about your guest and the guest experience you're going to have. Because, you know, one of the things I can realize is a lot of people don't talk about key box initially, right? And when the deal actually goes through and you realize, oh my god, I need to put a key box and you need to drill a hole, then the issue is you've got to ask the landlord or the letting agent. So at that point you're thinking, oh my god, you're missing the opportunity straight away, because if they say no, that's an additional £20 added to your monthly bill with the key services. Or you have a problem now because a guest, effectively, if they want to be able to get the keys on the door, they don't want to go an extra 10 minutes away to find the keys and then come back and get into the property. It's just, again, thinking about the guest experience as you're viewing this property. As you walk into the house, obviously it's just the usual upbringing of the property, making sure that things are well, and the size of the bedroom. For me, that's crucial, because as you're looking at what I said earlier, right, in our part 1, when we're doing the how to qualify a property, you saw that listing clearly had such a big room that he or she managed to put 2 double beds in the actual bedroom, which automatically increased the amount of sleeps, obviously increased the amount of nightly rate they can charge. But it's a great incentive for you to start thinking, this is how I'm going to set up the property, this is exactly how I'm going to, you know, set the processes, this is where the sofa's going to go. So you've got to start thinking about everything while you're chatting with the agent. Obviously, you know, building that relationship is so crucial. So some of the things I always, obviously me being a estate agent owner, I remember chatting with different people, and you know, it's always nice when somebody asks, going, oh, how long have you been doing this for? Like, you know, what's your ideal day look like, and you know, what's your works? It's just a good conversation flow with an agent. You need to build reputation, you need to build that trust. Also, you want to build that friend, because as you're now building that friend in our viewing, when you go back and put the offer, you're going to be able to really leverage saying, hey, I spoke to James on that viewing, you know, James was lovely, James, look, I'm looking to do it. So it really, again, sometimes somebody views the property, but then the other person deals with the offer and speaking to the landlord. So it's worth, again, speaking, like really building relationship with the person that views that property. As you're walking in, obviously you've got to think about where everything's going to go. If there's any wear and tear, you've got to speak to the person. Then you obviously, if you feel like you want to put some feature wall or you want to do some painting, got to mention that to the agent and say, hey, you know, I will happily invest this much money. I want to bring the, you know, the standard of the property in this way, because our guest will want to enjoy this. And especially because you've got that property for 3 years or 5 years, you want to leverage the time initially to be able to get that property into the best standard. So I hope this makes sense. This is just a thought process of what you're going to do, but I'd love you to sit down and just write down the things that you must do on your viewings, because it will give you a good vision on, you know, what a viewing should look like and what's the best outcome from that viewing. So the next stage of the process is you thinking about, you've done the viewing, you've got to put an offer. If you like that property, you've got to be very quick. I would even have a template ready to go, so that as soon as you get into the car, you know that you're putting an offer and you know that you're serious about it as well, right? So is it better, I get asked a lot, going, is it better giving an offer on a call or an email? Now for me, I personally love actually giving an offer on an email, or generally everything I work on, I prefer to do it on an email, just because if I give it a thorough offer, I know that there's 2 things I can achieve from here. One, the offer really has to talk about what you're offering, how long you're offering, you know, certainly checking the lease, the landlord checking their mortgages, little things. When you speak to someone on a call, they will say, hey, yes, we'll accept the offer, and you're talking them through all the other things that you need, and they might not be able to achieve that for you on that call. When you send an offer, I always say to them, hey, would you mind putting this offer that I've sent you on an email to the landlord? What their job is, they should literally copy and paste that or forward that to the landlord, because on that email, it clearly asks about the legal matters. That's what I'm excited about. The offer doesn't matter if you're offering them the full asking price or you've reduced it by a certain amount, offering them an extra whatever, you know, there's always different deals that you're going to go through. But for me, the legal part is the most important important thing. And I hope like you can see how like I'm trying to think future rather than now, because two things I can say to you, right? Firstly, I've heard enough bad stories of people not checking their lease. As a result, as soon as they get in there as a service accommodation, spend time setting up, they get an email and a letter from the management company saying you are not allowed to do Airbnb there. All the effort, the time, who to blame to? The agent's going to say, well, you never said that to us. Well, at that point, do you have an email to back it up to say, we're running a company-let service accommodation. We need you to check the lease, which will allow to do short-term let. Have you checked your mortgages so that if anything goes wrong, is the landlord changing or adapting or getting a consent from mortgage to do that? So you can see again, there's a lot more deeper information that you can go through an email offer. And for me, I would love you to do this. I'm going to give you a free template. I'm going to leave the link down below for the free template. All you need to do is go there, obviously get your information, give us, I think, your name, your email, and you will be able to download that free exact template. So now what's going to happen is you come to a position where I'm going to make it feel like it's been too easy, because you're thinking, okay, well, we've viewed the property, we've qualified location, but look, I'm going to talk about challenges, because what's going to happen within this process is there's two challenges I want to talk about. The call ratio, right? So if you're making only 1 to 10 calls and you're hoping that you're going to secure a service accommodation, the likely chances are you won't be able to, right? A, because of the experience, B, of the knowledge and the reputation that you've got to build. It's obviously going to be a lot easier for you in coming days when you have your first property and you work with an agent who can give you a reference. But for now, you're making that first move. I would love you to make at least 100 phone calls. I spoke to one of our clients recently and she said she made 300 phone calls before she secured her first unit. And to me, that sounds like normal at the moment, especially how the market's going, especially the amount of sources, the people who's trying to get to rent in the UK. Oh my God, it's literally what I think is pretty much true. 300 calls before she secured her first unit. And that shouldn't put you off. That should literally tell you it's only going to make you feel better. It's only going to make you understand how letting agents work and landlords work. And I would love you to request something. Most of the people I work with who have given up making those phone calls because A, they don't have time, B, they don't have the confidence, end up paying sources, property sources, who find the exact same deal as you will for an extra £3,000. The problem here is they're not going to go through the due diligence that I'm telling you to go through. Unless you're such a busy person, you know that deal stack up because you've gone through that right guest behavior checks. It needs, do not pay for the deal, right? If it's your first deal, take your time, because honestly, if you go through that first deal and do it yourself, you will be able to get more deals on your hands with no problems, and you'll build a reputation around letting agents and landlords, because you can say to them, hey, I've worked with this company in that location. And again, remember back to what I said earlier about building relationship with the letting agent when you did the viewing. You can say, hey, you know what, I did a viewing with James, and today 3 months later we've got a great relationship. And then you can speak to James saying, James, I'm looking to take another unit, would you mind giving me a reference, because I've been paying rent and time, I've been a good tenant. And that way you're now leveraging someone else to do it, right? But I guess the challenges here is the 1 to 100 ratio, making those phone calls. And the second challenge is what I'm going to now go through, the referencing and the agreement. So let's go through those two parts to further out your deal, the further out to secure this first property of your service accommodation business. Now, the referencing for me, depending on if you're working with a landlord or a letting agent, if you're working with a landlord, they're probably going to use the open rent method to do referencing. Obviously, it really is different to different landlords. Some are a lot more relaxed, but some will be able to go through certain things. They'll want to use usual stuff like the agent would. But for me, I think, again, because I'm pushing the agent route, I'm going to talk about the referencing with agents, because obviously being an estate agent in the past few years, I've owned, and I really understood the process behind why it's so important, and especially what are the referencing method that you're going to go through as a company let, because the company you own is brand new, has got no accounts, has got no history, The agent's going to ask you that, and the reality is you should be able to confidently back it up. So first thing, when you do a referencing on a company that hasn't got any history, you've got to be a guarantor. Now, a guarantor should have a certain amount of salary. Obviously, it all depends on the rental value that you're going to go through. So it might need one guarantor, or you might need two guarantor. It could be you or your partner, you or your brother, but you've got to have a combined salary to prove and pass the referencing. So the company is the tenant, you become the guarantor, and the referencing should go through as normal. Option number one. Option number two, some agents will take savings, which has been in your account for 6 months, as a part of referencing, which is a great news, because if you don't have enough income, that is also a great way to showcase that you've got something to back it up and pay the rent and all that kind of stuff. The third thing is some people will class you as a homeowner who has got a great credit history and be able to back that up as, again, a guarantor, which is, again, a great potential option. But you can see there's a variety of different things. Now, you should be able to say to them, hey, can I ask you about your referencing? You know, I've got 3 different options. I can qualify as a guarantor for my company. I've got two guarantors ready to go. Is that okay with you? You're asking that question rather than them telling you, right? Or you're saying to them, hey, look, I'm a homeowner with an X amount of salary. Would you consider that as a part of the journey? It's just understanding what and how it works so that you really understand the referencing, because if you don't, then when we move into the legal or the agreement part of it, there's going to be more challenges, which is, firstly, let's talk about the agreement that you're going to use. So because it's not a normal let, remember it's a company let, right? You've got to have a company let agreement if you're working with a letting agent. If you're working with a landlord, you can do management agreement. Now, sadly, our industry is all about templates. People share templates and people use templates. The agreement with the letting agent, the company let agreement, it's pretty strict. Most of the agent will say you cannot change our company let agreement terms. Now, there will be terms, and I've worked with a guy called Martin very closely. He's a property lawyer. He understands, his wife runs a service accommodation business, and I know for the fact, right, numbers of times I've spoken to Martin with regards to this. He's like, Piers, a company let agreement from an agent is not right. It's for a company let is for someone who owns a company and wants their staff or somebody in the company to stay there as a normal let. We're using a company let method to do a service accommodation and a short-term rental, so completely different. So for us, there's there's legal terms that we cannot have in the agreement, which means it needs to be altered. So there's 2 options. You've got to say them. Now, you know where I said about the offer email? In the offer email, I mentioned saying, hey, there are some terms that we need to agree to in the agreement. Would you mind sending us your company let agreement, or would you be happy for us to use a solicitor to review it? Now, you're making a statement piece straight away. Guys, there's people out there who will tell you to do it and it will be fine. If you're going to be in this business in coming years, you really want to leverage a business in the right way possible, you've got to do it in the best way to protect yourself as well as your business. Because tomorrow, if something goes wrong in the property and they bring a contract, you can then say to them, hey, in the contract, we've reviewed all the clause and said it's going to be used for that purposes, right? If you don't do that, when something comes up and they bring the contract in front of you, you have nothing to say, which means you'll be liable to rent, you'll be liable to, not giving back deposit, and there'll be so many other problems that you're going to find. If you've got that protection now, then in future, when things do go wrong, you'll have an option to go back and say, hey, do you remember that email I sent you on that day? I've got everything written there. So effectively, whatever you've done is wrong, not us, right? Again, the company let agreement needs to be reviewed. Again, there's certain clause, and then management agreement. People use templates. I am, again, all about starting business, taking action, but the management agreement template isn't really legally viable. But if you can convince a landlord to do so, absolutely do it. Martin, who again I've worked with closely as a property lawyer, he will say, Piers, that should be a no-go for anyone who's starting, because again, if anything goes wrong, that is the paperwork that you want to go back to. So guys, I hope that makes sense behind the processes of legal, the referencing. The crash course for me was all about giving you guys the value. It is truly to say, look, there is a simple way to get this business started, but also those minor detail that's going to make or break your business in 6 to 12 months when there might be a problem is so important. Guys, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share you a quick screen share around the furniture checklist that kindly one of our client recently gave it to us, and they were like, Piers, look, if any money. If your client needs it, I'll put something together. And I was like, great. So I'm going to go through that with you. You can have a look on the basic, and also there's got like a different cost. Now, obviously the cost varies depending on where you buy those lists and properties, but eventually I think the first thing you want to know is what do you need in that property, especially the bed setup, pretty much every room has a cost and how much you're going to spend on it. So let's go through it now, and then we'll catch up in a minute with a screen share. Let's go. Hey, now you can see my screen here. So this is pretty much the checklist, and luckily what you can see here is it's just a guidance on different kind of products you need for your kitchen, how much money you need per unit, and how many you need as well. But you can literally see, honestly, there's obviously my clients put IKEA thing in there, but you can go in, change it to whoever or whatever you want to spend the cost with, the TVs, the sofas, beds, the bedside table, and all that kind of stuff. And what you can do is effectively understand the total cost. Also, looking around the property setup, you can see here per room, you can start leveraging what you need. And yet again, quite important, you can see it's pretty easy. You can talk about the bedroom, how much you're going to invest, and it's a very easy tool to understand the setup cost and the setup of the property itself, leaving you understanding what you're going to invest on your Airbnb and short-term rental business. Now guys, look, I'm more than happy as usual. I want to make sure you guys are being helped through this process. I'm just going to check this furniture checklist for free on the description below, and yeah, again, another tool for you to just utilize. Saves a lot of time to put together, and obviously please go and change it. There's a lot of old stuff and old pricing in there. In reality, I think the setup and the cost is vision to your requirement. Remember, we've already thought about your investment area when we did that, in part 1 video. We looked at property comparison. At that time, you've seen the way people have listed the property, the way they've set up their property, what would sell, what wouldn't sell, and obviously, creativity, it's entirely up to you. How different do you want to make it look? But eventually you're going to get a professional photo done, and obviously it's time to launch the property. So for me, I think coming to the last part, and now I think about, this is probably like nearly an hour into, or even just more than an hour comparing to those 3 videos that we've already done. I really truly believe that the business model is just pretty much like a step-by-step process that we've gone through. But more importantly, the launch part is where people miss a big opportunity. Now, I know people who start generally take up to 2 weeks to set up the unit. Now, if you don't have a rent-free period and you're 2 weeks into the property or setup, you've now got 2 weeks to actually get booking and break even. Now, if you don't understand how to launch a property, the biggest issue now is you will not be able to achieve that requirement that you need in a cash flow. And this is where I guess the big opportunity come in understanding the launch. Must do is you've got to set up a unit from 0 to 7 days. That is the minimum requirement. 7 days, you've got to plan everything day 1 in. You've got to purchase. If you're picking up a key on a certain day, you need to line up your delivery. You need to make sure that you have got everything set up, because what's going to happen is by the time you completed the furniture and set up and 2 weeks in and you do the professional photo, like I mentioned, you've got to understand to list the property. Now in my channel, I've made a video on how to list property on Airbnb. There's tons of videos on it. There's tons of videos on booking.com as well. But guys, if you really understand this process, what I've said to you here is just the process around property investing. We've talked a little bit about hospitality business, but the third part of launch is what I call the actual marketing side of the business, because the person who's going to have the best photo, the best setup, and the best strategy online. Now, with our clients at GrowYourBnb, believe it or not, we only launch it with 7 nights minimum stay. Now, I'll repeat that. We only launch properties with 7 nights minimum stay, and we only open the calendar firstly for the first 30 days only. The reason why we do that is A, we want to quickly test the market for long-term booking. We don't want people to go further out in your calendar while you're still learning on how to launch a property. And if you sometimes forget to change it to 2 nights or 3 nights minimum, or whatever that is on Airbnb, people will go and book you for 1 night in middle of the month in 60 days in your calendar, which basically means that you've now got this messed up little booking that's going to block you from getting long-term bookings. So just for that trial period, you're not missing any opportunity. I've done tons of videos in my channel about direct booking. Please go and watch it because it will give you an understanding, a series on direct bookings, how to get direct bookings, the guest behavior, and everything you want to know. So look, I am really passionate about the industry, and for me, I think the launch can be strategic in different ways. And look, guys, I have got a little school community at the moment where basically I help people who are looking to get and grow grow bookings. And I've got clients who've got 10, 15 units who's looking to systemize, and effectively that community there, you get to learn everything about short-term rental business and service accommodation business in further detail, and especially things like I've got a video there about how to launch a property with if you've got a block of 4. It's completely different strategy to somebody who's launching with a block of 1, right? Or just 1 unit. So I am really excited to share you this opportunity, the short-term rental dictionary, where all we're doing is we're building an amazing community of people working together. It comes with a small cost, and you know what? There is a link down below. You can go in there, you can look into that detail. For what you're going to pay, there is so much information out there for you guys to really understand further into. My passion is the marketing side of service accommodation business, where I really leverage, and if you look at our GrowYourBnb video and even the reviews that we have absolutely nailed process every single year for the last 6 years. And the school community is everything for you guys to learn further into the existing market, the growing market for service accommodation, and there is so much other details. And my team will be sharing you some of the links, some of them on the screenshot here. I am really looking forward to seeing you inside the little community that we have and really try and grow your business through the right strategies in place. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this final part of your crash course for service accommodation business in 2024. You've got everything you need, actually the framework that you need to go and implement the strategies. I've given you a lot of tools that you guys can use from my actual experience and the actual template that I'm offering. And look, I'd love you do one favor. All you need to do is hit that like button, and I'll be back with another video soon.